I guilt-tripped my wife into losing weight. My wife had always struggled with her weight, but it had gotten much worse since the birth of our son, Mark, 3 years ago. The way she viewed herself weighed on me and our relationship. I knew it was selfish, but it drove me insane that she couldn't see herself as I did, the beautiful woman I married 15 years ago. But after another long night of self-loathing and binge eating, I finally snapped. If you don't get your eating and weight under control, you won't live long enough to see Mark graduate. I immediately regretted it. I love my wife deeply, and seeing her break down because of me was unbearable. I apologized profusely, but she couldn't hear me over her own wailing. I didn't want to make things worse, so I left to stay in a hotel until things blew over. A few days later, I returned, surprised to find she wasn't angry with me. In fact, she was a whole new person, talking nonstop about a new drug all the celebrities were taking. "See? Look at her," she yelled in excitement, pointing at the actress on the cover of Vanity Weekly. "She's been taking it for just 2 weeks, and she looks incredible." To me, the actress looked gaunt and sickly, but if this would make my wife happy, then so be it. Over the following weeks, she lost at least 50 pounds. I barely recognized her. Skin clung to her ribcage, her cheeks hollowed, and her teeth and hair began falling out. Yet, despite everything, she had an insatiable appetite. All she did was eat, and when she wasn't eating, she'd stare at herself in the mirror, smiling and brushing the hair right out of her scalp. One night, I woke to find her sitting on the floor in the corner of our room, brushing her hair and whispering, "I'm so hungry," over and over. Before I could react, she pounced on me, sinking her teeth into my throat and tearing away a chunk of flesh as I screamed. I tried to fend her off, but the blood loss made me weak, and that's when I turned to see Mark standing in the doorway. "Mommy?" Her gaze snapped to Mark, my blood and flesh dripping from her chin as she gurgled, "I'm so hungry." She leapt from the bed, landing on Mark's little chest with a horrifying crunch, and began devouring him as she repeated, "I'm so hungry." Now, as I lie here with my hand on my throat and the world fading around me, I can't help but think I was right. She'll never see Mark graduate, and neither will I. I have to feed the man in my basement every night. I timidly turned on the basement light, the small bulb that illuminates the narrow staircase flickering into life. I've been doing this for 11 years. Never gets any easier. Down one step I go. I hear the scraping of the chains on the concrete floor and the moaning of the man's distorted voice. A distorted voice that perfectly reflected his monstrous appearance. Down another step I go. I can see his silhouette hunched over in the furthest, darkest corner of the basement. The smell of rotting meat and fish from meals gone by hits me in the face like a truck, a stench I've never gotten used to. Down another step I go. I thought back to the day I was first tasked to feed the man in my basement. I was 16 years old. My father was upstairs on his deathbed. His final words to me were his brief set of instructions. "There's a man in the basement. He's chained up. Feed him a bucket of meat once a day. Don't talk to him. Don't get close. He's dangerous. You're the man of the house now, and it's too dangerous for your mother to do." Down another step I go. His hairless, pale body began to rise slowly from the corner. Still groaning his monstrous groan, his figure enlarged and teeth sharpened from years of a purely carnivorous diet. Down another step I go. I clenched the bolt cutters closer to my chest and questioned again what I was doing. It was today who I figured out who the man in my basement really was. I'd been looking for my passport amongst my mother's things when I found my birth certificate and his one next to mine. Down another step I go. A twin brother. One deemed too mentally unwell to warrant my parents' love and affection, but also too real to be forfeited for adoption at the cost of my religious nut parents' reputation. That was when his death was faked in infancy, and he became the boy in the basement, who grew into the man in the basement. Down the final step I go. I'm going to get you out of here, Abe. I'm going to give you your life back. That was when I heard the basement door open, my mother's shrewd voice calling down. Did you think I wouldn't have heard you fumbling around finding the bolt cutters, Kane? I can't have you ruining the family's reputation. Ruining my reputation. She took a step towards the light bulb switch, preparing to shut me in the dark and lock me away forever. Lock me away with my brother. Then she tripped on the wire I'd laid out at the top of the stairs just for her. She fell down one step, then another, then another, then another, then another, then another. There was a reason I didn't bring any meat down for Abe tonight. I knew there'd be something more satisfying on the menu for him. Mom didn't react well when my sister was taken. Please tell me what you can remember. The officer set a hot cup of tea down in front of me, his best attempt at a comforting gesture. It happened so fast. My sister and I were walking home from our track meet. We took the shortcut through the alley, and some guy sped up in his car and grabbed her. He shoved her in the back seat and tried to grab me too, but I managed to fight him off. He took my phone, so I ran here as fast as I could. He let me continue. Her name is Allison. Allison Lewis. My name is Jesse Lewis. I probably already told you that. He nodded. Do you remember the license plates? Not exactly, but I think it started with a 5 and ended with a 7. And it, I think, was out of state. Possibly Washington. Sorry. I wish I remembered more. It's okay. That'll certainly help us start, and you may remember more in the future. Can I call my mom? We have an officer headed to your house now, but yes, please feel free to contact her. You can use my phone. I finished giving my statement and recited my mom's number to Officer Brown as he typed it into his phone and put it on speaker. Mom. Before she could answer, I burst into tears. Officer Brown looked at me sympathetically and took over the call. Mary, this is Officer Brown from the Clark County Police Department. I have some upsetting news. We have officers on the way to your home. We'd like to escort you to the precinct to discuss it. What's wrong? What happened? I nodded for him to continue. Your daughter. She was abducted while walking home. The panic in her voice grew. Is it Jessie? Did they take Jessie? Jessie is here with us. She managed to escape, but they took Allison. The panic in her voice quickly dissipated. Oh, okay. Officer Brown looked at the phone quizzically, as if taken aback by her sudden lack of concern. Jessie, can you hear me, dear? I'll be right over, sweetie. You poor thing. Mom is coming. Please hurry, I choked out. I was also disgusted with my mom's reaction, but I was used to it. Despite us being identical twins, Mom always had a favorite. Jessie was her cherished daughter, and I was the disposable one. Annoying Allison is what she liked to call me. 256 ATL, Oregon plates. I remembered it just fine. But I needed to steer the police in the wrong direction, so I could come up with a plan. If enough time passes, Mom can stop pretending like she cares anyway. I don't know how I am going to keep up this act, but I have to. This is the only way my mom will finally love me. I was born into the circus. Ever since I can remember, I've been part of the circus. Shoot, matter of fact, I was born into it, right behind a trailer that housed a lovely rotund woman with a beard named Rosette. Least, that's where I was told she found me. From that day on, when I wasn't helping Rosette trim her lady beard, I spent every waking moment learning everything I could about the circus, trying to find where I'd fit in best. Then one day, I met Gopher. Gopher was a 1,200-pound brown bear. That's about 544 kilos for you folks across the pond. And he could do everything from clapping his paws all the way to riding a god-dang scooter. It was like something straight out of one of them fairy tale books Rosette used to read to me. Every day I'd watch Gopher train with his handler, Billy, and every day I'd learn something new, like how you always need food nearby to keep his attention, or how you never expose your backside to him. But one thing that always twisted my britches was the way Billy used a whip to, as he so elegantly put it, remind him who's boss. No, sir, I didn't like that one bit. One particular night, during our biggest show of the year, Gopher refused to roll over. A trick I'd seen him do hundreds of times, no problem. Billy would gesture, Gopher would refuse, and the audience would laugh. I found it rather funny too, if I'm being honest. But Billy? He was madder than a puffed toad. After the show, I went to see Gopher to give him a piece of cake I'd saved for him. When I got there, his cage was open and he was gone, which I thought unusual. So I went looking. I searched high and low, checking every tent and trailer on the lot, but Gopher and Billy were nowhere to be found. I went to sleep, thinking he'd be back in the morning. That night, I woke to the sound of a whip cracking, followed by a bellowing roar. I rushed out my trailer still in my skivvies and ran as quick as the wind towards that horrible sound. As I made it to the woods, I saw Billy, 3 sheets to the wind, and he had tied Gopher to a tree and was whipping the hell out of him. And in that moment, I swear, may God strike me down, I could hear Gopher in my head, begging me for help. I darted out of the woods and into the clearing, knocking old Billy on his ass, and turned to help Gopher. Slowly, I slipped the rope from his neck and did the one thing you ain't ever supposed to do. I turned my back on him. To this day, I can remember the sounds Billy made as Gopher ripped that bastard apart. And to this day, it still brings a smile to my face.